Renewed determination on the side of the National Party following its victory in the 1992 referendum. A second round of negotiations at CODESA starts shortly afterwards. The negotiations don't last long, however, as it is once again interrupted by events away from the negotiation table.
At the second meeting of CODESA, which happened on the 15th of May 1992, the ANC lost a crucial vote on whether South Africa should be a centralized or federal system. 7 organizations backed the ANC and 11 voted against it. And because the ANC had lost the vote at CODESA on this point that was so crucial to it, the ANC criticized CODESA in various ways, said it would have to reconsider its participation in CODESA. And meantime, it started resorting to ever more mass action, accompanied as always by coercion and intimidation to make sure that people participated. It also intensified its attacks against Inkatha, and particularly against Inkatha supporters who had holed up in a hostel called Madala, the old one, in the Boipatong area. 3 Inkatha supporters were necklaced around about the 16th of June, which was of course the commemoration of the Soweto revolt, and which the ANC had hoped would see a great upsurge in mass action in support of its call for a sort of alternative to the CODESA process. That upsurge of mass action didn't happen. Inkatha decided to take revenge for the necklacings and the other attacks to which its supporters had been subjected over the years. So Inkatha launched a mass attack against Boipatong.
More than 15 hours after a group of gunmen went on a killing spree through this normally quiet residential area, police were still having difficulty in tracing the bodies of victims killed in their own homes.
The Boipatong Massacre takes place of some 50 people or so butchered on the West Strand.
Innocent people massacred that way.
And it had aimed primarily to target the youths organized into self-defense units that it thought were primarily responsible for the violence, but it couldn't find those youths, so it attacked randomly, and it killed a number of men, women, children, who it happened to find in its path as it went.
Being 48 residents, including a baby, it was the worst of the massacres, and anti-government feeling rose to new heights.
As I say that, I don't deny that some of our people did have preemptive attacks. It was very bad because it almost turned into an ethnic war.
The ANC then effectively abandoned CODESA, and it used the Boipatong Massacre as the excuse for doing so.
Mandela's view on that violence was that de Klerk was either complicit in it, or as representative government, or at least at best negligence about black people losing their lives. So it created, in that sense, a terrible atmosphere, and it just increased the mistrust between the de Klerk government and the Mandela ANC, because Mandela became more and more angry about that and manifested his anger.
I can no longer explain to our people why we continue to talk to a government, to a regime which is murdering our people.
The consequence of Boipatong was of huge significance and helped to the ANC. It internationalised the cause.
On behalf of all Australians, I have to say we're appalled at the continuing violence in South Africa. On the 17th of June, 39 innocent people, including women and children, were massacred at the township of Boipatong, and there were a further three further deaths and 20 casualties during President de Klerk's visit to the township on the 20th of June.
The cause of the ANC was reanimated in the world, if you like. De Klerk and his government were put in a very harsh light. So although he'd enjoyed, if you like, since 1990, a great following wind of international approval, this very much knocked him off his perch in the international community and elevated Mandela as the person who would help bring about change in South Africa in a more fundamental way. So yes, I think put the ANC in a much stronger position, and of course it used that position between the break-off of these negotiations and the resumption to strengthen its position on the ground, and it had a lot more moral force on its side, quite aside from support on the ground.
After Boipatong, the ANC begins to push more aggressively for acknowledgement that a so-called third force is responsible for the violence in the townships. These allegations will strengthen the ANC's legitimacy and severely damage the credibility of the National Party government.
We think that a third force was in operation,
which we know were military intelligence, police elements.
So very soon, ANC activists and organisations allied to the ANC and then the ANC itself began to allege that the attack on Boipatong had been carried out with the active help and involvement of the police.
Well, in fact, it's been disproved. It was disproved by the Truth and Reconciliation's own Amnesty Committee. They found that there had been no government involvement. They had foreign police involvement who also looked into this and could also find no trace at all of government involvement. But why spoil a good story?
We will leave no stone unturned to establish the truth.
And allegations by the ANC that the police were slow in reacting.
These allegations will be investigated as well. They will be intensively investigated. And I give the assurance that we will take every step necessary to establish the truth.
There was no evidence of police involvement, but a merely attack by Inkatha had relatively little propaganda value, particularly if it was seen in the context of a tit-tat of violence between the ANC and Inkatha over many years.
So the ANC, knowing exactly what the case was, wrung every ounce of propaganda value from the incident that it could.
I must say that the ANC had totally exaggerated the importance of the so-called third force. The common factor is that the ANC was involved in virtually all the conflicts in the townships.
So the view that the police were part of the Boipatong Massacre has never been endorsed by any kind of evidence. It's simply an allegation, but it's one that keeps on being repeated by the ANC and its supporters, and it's won enormous credence right around the world. It's widely believed, even though it's not true. And based on that allegation, the ANC then broke off negotiations, and it left de Klerk, as it were, twisting in the wind, because he needed to bring negotiations to a close before 1994, which was when the next election had to be held under the existing constitution.
The ANC, through brilliant propaganda, had succeeded in presenting themselves to the public as almost innocent people just crying out for their freedom.
The country has not yet